Hello, ladies. This is Laura Gabriel coming to you with some pictures today from my personal collection of women warriors. I love these images because it reminds me of Ephesians chapter 6, verses 10 through 20, where we learn about the armor of God. You know, God gives us His spiritual armor to wear, and we need to be using it every day. Do you know what the armor is? Are you putting it on every day? One reason I love this morning routine challenge is by putting God first, by centering our thoughts on Him, we really are, in effect, equipping ourselves, putting on armor. It's an active step we take to put on His armor. Our theme this month is Seize the Day, and we are marching into March together, and you'll see soon, if you haven't yet, that seizing the day for God rather than selfish ambition, but for godly ambition, is a whole different animal. And I'm so glad to be with you to work through it together in our accountability teams. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being the kind of woman that is willing to go to war for what matters. And we all know that our time with the Lord is sacred. It's so important. It changes everything. In full disclosure, I just want to express that these images, I found them on Pinterest. I have a whole Pinterest album of them, but this isn't Christian art. It's just images that remind me of the battle that's going on around me. It helps me visually appreciate the fact that, you know, life is hard, but God has given me what I need. One thing I do like about these images is they're not like sexy pictures. It feels when I look at these pictures like this is real armor these women are wearing for the most part. Like, this is real war. And frankly, getting out of bed can feel like war sometimes. These simple things in our life, when you encounter things like anxiety or bitterness or depression, harsh words spoken to you, you start to get a sense of just how serious the spiritual unseen world is. Things like anxiety, you can feel very weighed down. I have had experiences where, for example, one time I wanted to get on an airplane, but I started to have an anxiety attack, and I felt this heaviness over my body so strong that I felt like I couldn't get out of my chair. And I wonder if any of you have experienced that. I almost missed my flight that day, you know? So these things, they may be spiritual, but they can inch into our reality and soon cripple us in different ways, from being effective in the Lord or just being effective to catch a flight, you know? It's all so real. So I want to encourage you to take the battle seriously. But in this process, I don't want to make the devil seem more powerful than he is. I want to magnify our God. So let's read Ephesians chapter 6, verses 10 through 20 together. I'm going to use the English Standard Version. It says, "Finally, be strong in the Lord and in the strength of His might. Put on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to stand against the schemes of the devil. For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers over this present darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places. Therefore, take up the full armor of God, that you may be able to withstand in the evil day, having done all to stand firm. Stand therefore, having fastened on the belt of truth, and having put on the breastplate of righteousness, and as shoes for your feet, having put on the readiness given by the gospel of peace. In all circumstances, take up the shield of faith, with which you can extinguish all the flaming darts of the evil one, and take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God, praying at all times in the Spirit with all prayer and supplication. To that end, keep alert with all perseverance, making supplication for all the saints, and also for me, that words may be given me in opening my mouth boldly to proclaim the mystery of the gospel, for which I am an ambassador in chains, that I may declare it boldly as I ought to speak. Today, in your accountability groups, you are asked to identify the part of the morning routine that is an area where you most need to improve. And the steps of the morning routine are prayer, affirmations, visualization, exercise, reading, and scribing. Now, I'd like to take a moment and just ask you, what is something right now going on in your life that's of great concern to you? On page 11 of the Bible study, Armor of God, Priscilla Shirer asks us to write the name of the most difficult person, most pressing problem, or most overwhelming circumstance you are facing in your life right now. And she says, mention several if you'd like. Take your time. You'll be referring back to this list several times throughout the study. So if you have a piece of paper, I'm asking that you write down what comes to mind somewhere. You can pause this right now. And things are a little crazy right now in the world, so it shouldn't be too hard to think of a few. But again, we're here to magnify the Lord, so don't be afraid to write it down. We'll unpack this together over these next 10 days. All right. Did you do it? Of course you did. Okay. In the past, when I've led this study for women, we've gotten all sorts of answers. Women have felt attacked because of their beliefs, different forms of persecution. There was one woman once who said that her kids had reached the age of accountability, and she can see them torn between the world and the things that they've been taught all their life. She had worked so hard to raise them in the faith, and it's hard for her to see them at a crossroads. And then there was one woman who had shared about her finances. It's hard. The world is full of these challenges, family, marriage, or that feeling or your biggest fear that maybe you're just barely hanging on, that your fire, your desire for the Lord is barely hanging on. The central point made in this Bible study, and frankly being made by our Morning Miracles Challenge, is that you are in a spiritual realm right now. The things that you're really facing are spiritual things. That there is an enemy of the soul that wants to steal the good things from your life, and you're going to need to fight God's way. You can see, it says here, Ephesians 6, verse 12, our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the powers, against the world forces of this darkness. Can you honestly say, I see that, and yes, I'm willing to fight God's way? The people and the circumstances that I've written down here are not the enemy. The enemy is the evil one. Sharpen your senses with us these next 10 days. Improve your response time. Get more courageous to come before the Lord. End the retreat, the feeling of hiding, and begin the offense. I'm so excited for what God will do when you put Him first these 10 days. This is Laura Gabriel signing off.